So good morning and welcome to our Essential Skills Insights series. This session is on session 4 and it's on online networking for engineers and delivered by Jean Evans. So we're really looking forward to this session. We thank Flowgas again for powering this series. And before I hand over to Jean, I'm going to just go through some housekeeping. So I hope you can hear and see us. Find the chat function, so where if you're having any technical difficulties, you can use the chat function to just pop that in and I'll assist you. And also very importantly, to find the Q&A function. So this is where you'll enter your questions for Jean. We really encourage your interaction this morning and we're hoping for lots of questions and interaction and your comments. And then just to let you know also that after Jean's presentation, there'll be about 15 minutes for Q&A, and this is where you use the Q&A field. If you're experiencing any technical difficulties, use the chat function, and if you find yourself outside of Zoom, call us on the CPD hotline. Or you can email our cpdtraining@engineersireland.ie. And then just before I hand over to Jean, if you could also take our online survey when the session ends, we'd really appreciate your feedback. So I'm going to hand over to Jean. As I mentioned, Jean is an expert in all things networking. She's had lots of experience at a national and a global level. Her work has been highly commended in the Networking Ireland National Awards. And she's currently the president of Network Ireland Wicklow chapter. So I'm really looking forward, and we're all really looking forward to hearing from you today, Jean. And it's a pleasure now to hand over to you and introduce this session. So thank you, Jean.
Thank you, Alva, and I'm absolutely delighted to be here and cue the correct screen for me to put on right now. So as I was just talking to Alva there, and I was just saying that I've made this as practical as I possibly can. Some of the slides have a little bit more content on them than I normally would put, but I'm conscious of the fact that this is being recorded and you're going to have the upload of the slides to refer to afterwards. So it would be great, put it in the chat as well where you're at with LinkedIn. Are you very comfortable with it? Are you starting? Did you start a profile and didn't really do anything with it and just want to sort of see what are the things to do to improve your profile? So pop it in the chat there and just give me a quick idea of where you're at and give me your comfort level with it. I'm just going to take, there's no chat going in there, so I'm going to take that everybody is very comfortable with it but has something to learn. So here's an overview of what we're going to talk about today. So I'm going to talk, just to give you a little bit of background on me, just to give you context on why I'm here. I'm going to talk a little bit about networking and how LinkedIn fits into this, and then we're going to dive into the practical tips so that you can optimize and maximize your profile. I'm going to give you a list of some free resources that I use on a daily basis for helping boost the profile, a couple of tips on what not to do, and then we're just going to hit the summary then straight afterwards. So in terms of me, I had 22 years generally in a tourism background, so quite different. I used to work with Bord Fáilte in the markets. That changed to Tourism Ireland. I ran the Convention Bureau in Dublin for 5 years. Then I became a professional conference organizer for 10 years and ran a large team. And then I was made redundant, which wasn't part of my life plan or my career plan. So I was out of the corporate world. And one of the things that I realized I needed to do was that I needed to network. I had networked quite well within my career, and that had helped me progress in terms of promotions and accessing new opportunities. But when I went outside and outside my niche and what was a niche area, I didn't know anybody outside of that. And I had to start building up a network, and it opened up a whole new world to me. So I was working with my other half for then a couple of years, and then last year when COVID hit, I suppose it gave me time to take stock of what I really wanted to do. And in the last few years, I had done a huge amount of networking. I was involved in about 9 different networks, and people will sort of go, oh my God, that's how do you do that? But they're all different times of the day, different, some of them are weekly, some of them are monthly, some of them are more social, some of them are business, referral, professional. So there's lots of different types of networks out there. But I grew to love it unexpectedly. It wasn't a plan. But I also saw people struggling with networking, and that's why I started my blog, to try and address some of the things that I was seeing and some of the problems and some of the angst and anxiety and overwhelm and fear that I was seeing from people. And that really came to pass when COVID hit and everything went online, and a lot of people were saying, I'm not going to network online, I'm not very comfortable with it. And they needed to learn that skill, or were saying that they weren't going to network until I went back face to face. And we're 10 coming on to 11 months later, and we're still online. So I think it's a critical skill. And that furthermore then got me into speaking and training, coaching, facilitating on all areas of network, setting up another brand, Network Me. So that sort of gives a little bit of background. So what I want to do is give you some practical skills, but tell you why I find some of these things are important, because they've come from my own personal experience and realizations of what we need to be doing to look after ourselves. So in terms of contact details, there are all of my contact details. I have a newsletter which you can sign up to if you want to learn more about networking. There's a Linktree link there. So if you have that, you have access to all of my details from the blog, to my email, to all of my social media profiles as well. And that's a little resource that I'm going to talk to you about a little bit later on as well. So here is something to put context on networking. Networking is like compound interest on your pension. It only works with time, okay? And a lot of people go into networking thinking it's going to be the Midas touch. It's going to immediately resolve a problem that they have, or they're immediately going to get results from the networking. And it's just not the case. You have to build up the trust, and you have to build up the relationships. So when you're in a physical setting and you're going into networking, or even if you're starting the online networking, you need to be in your head, you need to be investing 12, 18 months, 2 years before you can reasonably expect something back forward. So it takes longer than people realize. But if you think about it, and any of your friends, or for anybody who's married or in a partnership, it took time for you to decide that that was your partner or your spouse or whatever. It didn't just happen. It took time, and business relationships are exactly the same. So be aware of that while you're have that in the back of your head while we're going through the slides. So here's something that is really, really important, and why networking matters. It's because it's for your future. It's not about today. If you're trying to go into your network and solve a problem today, it's probably too late, because you haven't built up the relationships with people. So think about it as a long-term investment in yourself. Think about it as a long-term investment in your career and in your personal brand. And every single one of us has a personal brand. So again, I want you to frame what I'm saying within that and think long-term. Networking is not about what you know, and especially when in professional associations, there's a lot of technical skill that is involved in it. And when I was a professional conference organizer, I worked only with associations, so I got it, and CPD was a huge part of it, and there'd be all the conferences organized and stuff like that. But when we would do surveys, education is extremely important, but networking was more important, because it's about connecting with people. So when it came down to the values of an association, it was always networking first and the education second, access to speakers and what have you. So there was always sort of quite a linear tier of what people valued out of them. But it's not about what you know, it's who you know. But I can be more precise on that. It's who knows you. So think about that, because when you're going into your network, you have to really think, who knows you? If people don't know you, that's a problem, but it's also one that's absolutely reversible, achievable, surmountable. It is about who knows you. So this is where LinkedIn is going to come in, because it's about getting your voice, your presence, your knowledge out into the world. And we're going to talk about how we're going to do that. So remember, it's about who knows you, not about what you know, not about who you know, it's about who knows you. And in particular, I say this as for many of you, you're probably introverts. I'm an introvert. So I am saying this, that I understand also how difficult this is, but I also know that when you do it and you do it again and you do it again, you build up resilience and you build up a muscle of being able to share who you are and not feeling that overwhelm or that fear or that sense of embarrassment. So I really genuinely do get it. You have to put yourself out there. You have to make yourself known. And LinkedIn in the business environment is the best way of doing this. And I'm going to talk to you about all of the things you can do to make yourself known, to get yourself out into the universe. Okay, so there's 7 billion people in the universe. People need to hear your voice. If you're in a career, if you're working for a company, if nobody knows you, doesn't know your capacity, you may have fantastic technical skills, but if you don't learn how to get that out there, you're going to be bypassed for promotions. You're not going to get into areas you want to. You're not going to get asked onto projects. You're not going to ask to get to collaborate. You're not going to be brought in on tender projects. You have to make yourself known, and that's what we're going to, another part of what we're going to talk about this morning. So this is just a generalization of what networking does for you. So it works on collaboration, problem solving, troubleshooting. It is diversity of ways of thinking and lateralizing the way you look at things. It's about learning. It can counteract loneliness, because when you're in a job or if you're working from home, networking is a great way to stay connected. And that is really, really important for all of our mental health at the always, but particularly for now when a lot of us are working from home. And it widens your perspective. And when you widen your perspective, you're more useful in your job and in your company that you're working for as well, because you bring different points of view to the table. So networking for me is, you know, when I was part of a lot of networks, people would say, how can you be part of so many networks? And for me, I looked at it as an integral part of my sales and marketing activity. It was an integral part of me growing my confidence, getting my voice out there, being able to communicate and articulate who I was, what I was doing at the time. And so I didn't look at it as there's sales, there's marketing, there's my job, and then there's networking. It was all of that. And it was my ability to do better because I was constantly learning and pushing myself. And that grew my confidence. And what I realized over time was when my confidence was growing, I was growing personally. And then when I was growing personally, I could give much more professionally. Because I was much more secure in what I was doing. It gives you the ability to foster and nurture new relationships. It's the opportunity to build trust and build that integrity. And that's why people will want to do business with you. So there's a maxim that people do business with people they like and trust. So this is part of what you have to do to build those relationships. But networking, the key to networking, and again, it's about reframing, is that it's an opportunity to give, it's an opportunity to serve, it's an opportunity to help other people. And there's a thing called the law of reciprocity, that if you give, it will come back to you. But you have to give, and also have that mindset of always looking to give before you expect to receive. And sometimes you don't know when you're going to receive. Sometimes you mightn't understand how you're receiving, because it mightn't just be a piece of business or access to a project. The giving and receiving can come in lots of different forms when you're networking. So we'll talk about that a bit further on as well. In terms of your career, again, it's about building relationships. It can be around career transition and promotion. It can be about the progression. It could be because you want to develop a side hustle. You know, lots of people do that. They have another interest and they want to develop a side hustle. So networking will help you in all of that. But ultimately, and this comes back down to my personal story, it future-proofs yourself, because I didn't expect to be made redundant. I had been 22 years in an industry. And for me, I was a lifer in the industry. I didn't see anything else. I didn't know anything else until I was given my papers. And then I was like, okay, right. Okay, identity crisis part 1. I have no idea what I'm going to do. I didn't know my sense of purpose. I realized I was very well connected in one industry, but not in an outside of that. And this is, you just don't know what's going to happen. So you have to, I put a little post up on my Instagram yesterday. You have to work harder on yourself than you do in your job. Now, employers mightn't like to hear that, but you have to, because that's what makes you useful. But networking and building your profile future proofs you, and you have to look after you. So I think that's really, really important. Don't wait for something to happen, preempt, and just be ready. So the unexpected that can happen as well, networking, is doors opening. It can be the new job, a new company, a new future, new collaborations, a new project. Again, when you're known, then you get invited in to do more things. It can be tender opportunities. It can be you want to start your own business down the line. You may be working for somebody today and saying 10 years, actually, I'd like to have my own company. Again, you have to build up your network in advance and future-proof and plan ahead. They say in networking that visibility plus credibility equals profitability. Okay, so this is a general thing. So it's whether you're working within a team, you're running a team, you have your own company. This is something that is vitally important. Visibility plus credibility equals profitability. So we're going to talk around LinkedIn, and this is the preface to what we're talking about. It's how do you raise your visibility? How do you imbue your profile with loads of credibility? And what will the profitability be? Profitability, we tend to think of money, but it's not just about money. Profitability can mean, what are your values? What do you want to see? How do you want to grow? And that is absolutely key. Okay, so for LinkedIn, it's an opportunity for you to position yourself as a subject matter expert. There are 650 million users on LinkedIn today and growing on a daily basis. It is a fantastic way of you building up your personal brand. All of us have a personal brand. So it's about you getting your voice and your person out there to the world. It helps build up you as a credible and trusted resource. It gives you that opportunity. People on LinkedIn, it is a social profile, it is a business social profile. So people are there to build relationships, to build trust and build rapport, okay? This is something that the search engine optimization and SEO is something that people generally don't consider when they're writing their profiles. So if you search in Google, search your name in Google, if your profile is well optimized or you've got good content going through it, you should come up very, very, in the first, second, third and of your LinkedIn profile should appear if you put in your own name in Google. So after the presentation, have a look, just do a quick search and see where you rank. If you don't rank, then there's a lot we can do about that. But it's one of the key things that if you're in a position going for that promotion, somebody's looking at you, wants to know, are you a good person to be on a project? They're going to do research, and it's a prime way that people are looking for information on you. So you have to be aware, what information am I putting out about myself that I want people to know about me? It helps, LinkedIn can help with the diversity of your network, and it can connect you into with lots of different audiences, and that's where the diversification comes in and being able to think laterally. So there's a lot there, but I'm going to break it down now. So we're going to dive into the tips, and here are I've circled some of the bits that I want you to be aware of, because I'm going to talk about them now the next few slides. So I just have to move the dashboard out of the way. So the first circle up here, if you can see my mouse, is the Me button. So if you just open up your own profile, and if you open up the profile, you're going to see, generally, if you press home, you're going to see this screen, this dashboard here that I have. And that's where you can post your articles and, just small little posts. You've got the Me button. And when you press the Me button, it opens up into this slide here. So I've just taken screen grabs from my own one. So the next thing I want you to look at is edit public profile and URL. So I'll talk to you about that in a minute. I've circled my small bio and profile there, okay? The Jean Evans, and it just gives you a quick snapshot of who I am. And then when you're on your own profile in the Me and you're looking through everything and you're updating everything, LinkedIn rates how your profile is going, and it tells you whether you have filled in all of the fields. It'll tell you whether you need to do more, and it'll rate you. And then what you want to aim to be is an all-star. You want to be editing your content and working towards being that all-star, because that means your profile is complete and it's rich, and that's what you want to see happen. Okay, so I'm going to break this down into layers, okay? And the reason I've broken it down into layers is that there's sort of a lot in this when you stand back, but there's a lot of easy things you can do to upgrade your profile, and you can take it piece by piece. So whether it's a piece of cake or a layer of cake, you can take it piece by piece. So the first thing to have is a professional photo. This is so important, okay? I would absolutely advise people to go and invest in getting a professional headshot done. If some companies get that done for their employees, which is great, but if they don't, and it's a small company, I would still say go and get a photographer, get them to take a professional headshot. A headshot might be anywhere from 100 to 150 euro, but if you've got an option or a couple of options to use, you're going to use it across all of your social media profiles, and it's a really good investment. Because if you're asked for a photo because you're contributing an article, then you have something there ready that you're confident about putting out. And a lot of this is about building your confidence as well. There's such thing as called brand photography as well. And brand photography is where you would go with a photographer and you would have multiple changes of clothes or hair or makeup if you're a lady, and there's different shoots, different locations and stuff like that. But the idea is that you're taking in different poses and you can use the photography for different aspects of your social profile and how you're putting yourself out there. So there's two different ways. A brand photography can go anywhere from 450 to 1,000. So it's not for everybody. So it really just depends on where you see yourself going. But the point here is use a professional photo. Do not use a logo and do not use a holiday pic from a wedding, from a party, from anything like that. Use a professional pic, because this is what people look at, and it is what is the first point of you making that impression and building up trust with the person. The next thing that virtually everybody misses out on is the descriptor. And the descriptor is the bit up here where I say I'm President Network Ireland Wicklow. So I updated that this year, for example, because that's part of my role for this year within Network Ireland, as an example. That wasn't the same last year, it won't be the same next year, because I update that based on what I'm doing. What is important there is, one, you put in words that describe who you are, what you want to be known for, and why people should look at connecting with you. It is also part of the search engine optimization of LinkedIn reading your profile, because LinkedIn works very well. Microsoft bought LinkedIn and they work very well with making sure that all of the profiles are optimized in Google, or if it's in the States on Yahoo or Bing or what have you. But it's really, really important to use this because it's the first snapshot of people understanding who you are. There's 160 characters. So what I would say is be very, you're probably going to need to edit this a few times, and I have a little resource later on for this, but edit it a few times and be careful of your punctuation, be careful of your spelling, because it's the first thing that people see, and make it concise. And being concise and it's harder, so you might have to write it a few times and then change words or use the passive tense and stuff like that, but just play around with it. And because there's going to, when somebody opens up your profile and they're on the homepage, they will see your little description on the left hand page, but when you go into a full profile, then it's at the header. Okay, so the header image is the very, very top of the thing. So I have the little background there of the laptop on my header. And what I would say there is that this is underutilized. This is called digital retail space. And this is absolutely underutilized. And for most people, you see the blue or I think they've changed it now to the blue and gray, and they don't use that space. But what could you use that space for? You could have a picture up there that projects something about your value, about your business. Do you have a course? Do you have a new article that you've published? Do you whatever you want to talk about something to do with your purpose, your value, your business, whatever it is, use that space, because it is super, super valuable and subliminally tells the reader a lot about you. So use it, because it really is very, very valuable. And if you do courses or you're speaking at something or what have you, use it to promote yourself, because that's what LinkedIn is about. It's about you doing that bit of self-promotion. So I think we tend to be, as a people, quite uncomfortable with that, but get more comfortable with it. And I know from experience doing the first few times doing it is that I was like, oh, I don't know how much of me I want to put out there, but I had to start doing more of it. But the more you do, it's practice. Practice makes perfect. It makes it easier. It builds up that resilient muscle of just, I have to make those updates, and you just get with it. So if you were doing very frequent updates, courses they're speaking, then I would look at doing a monthly header, or you might want to change your header every 3 months or every 6 months, but use the space to tell the audience or your reader something about you. So I talked about personalizing your URL as well, and I showed you where to edit. So you go into me and then you go into edit public profile. So a big no-no is having numbers in your profile. So personalize it. So personalize it to something that is easy to remember, and for a couple of reasons. One, because you can copy that URL and paste it out when you're on networking meetings or team meetings or whatever, and you want to build up your contacts. You can paste that out, but even if you can't, or you don't have the opportunity to paste it, I can tell you straight away, mine's at linkedin.com/in/networking Jean. I know what it is because it's super easy. And one of the reasons I have that, not only because it reflects my blog, but also because if I just put in Jean Evans, there's loads more Jean Evanses out there. So it's a way of me differentiating myself. So don't use numbers, use something that tells the reader something about you as well. So use it because it is part of your brand. And it's what I call, one of my blogs is on what I call micro networking opportunities. So I have a little tip here, the Zoom tip. So you can see the way, for example, on my profile on the little tile, I have Jean Evans -network me. If you just put your company name in, you're losing the opportunity of people knowing your name and who you are. If you just put in Kevin's iPhone, nobody's going to know your surname or how to connect with you. If you just put in Kevin O'Donnell, for example, and I went on to LinkedIn, I'd love to connect with Kevin O'Donnell, and I went, oh, there's 30 Kevin O'Donnells. I don't know who the right Kevin O'Donnell is. I can't find enough information on his profile. He doesn't have a picture uploaded. I then lose the opportunity to connect, and you lose the opportunity to connect in with me. So it's what I call a micro networking opportunity, that people, in marketing terms, it's 12 to 15 touch points that people need to see to actually read and resonate with your information, with your brand. So don't lose out on the opportunities. Give people your full name and who you work for, because that will, when you're on your networking meetings, your teams meetings, meetings with suppliers, anything like that, use that, because if people want to connect with you afterwards, you have to make this easy. And they're very, very simple things to do. So don't underestimate them. As I said, they're what I call the micro networking opportunities. So layer 2 is putting in your descriptor. So again, you're in me, you're editing your profile, and what you're aiming to do is fill in all of the boxes insofar as you can. So you want to have 200 to 300 word descriptor, and you want to include as many keywords in that about what you want to be known for. So are you writing abstracts for journals, and you're an author, you're published, you're a team leader, you might be doing a new podcast, you might be specializing in sustainability or the environment or energy. So I've just taken some ideas there, but what do you want to be known for? And again, you need to put these words in because this is part of the search engine optimization. So you want to write those 200 and craft really the 200 to 300 word descriptor using the words that you want to become known for. So that's really, really key. The next thing as well is you need to write in the first person. Okay, don't write them, don't write we. First person, own the content, own who you are, own what you do. And when you do and you start writing it, there's a few things that will happen. You take stock of where you're at and you realize your accomplishments, and it'll give you confidence. So you just believe me, this will happen. You will start to grow. Within the descriptor, you want to be able to answer also. These are all aspects that you're going to put in this descriptor. So you want to say how you can help, who do you help, and why. You want to add in your contact details, your social media details, website, email. So there's all the different boxes in this. What I would also say, and a little tip of something that I realized recently as well, within the profile, you're able to put in your Twitter. So my Twitter handle, they lock it in for some reason, and the Twitter handle on my LinkedIn account is my old handle, my old address. And when I change it, I haven't been able to update it on my LinkedIn. Now I have other ways around it, but what I would say is the no number rule. If you're on Twitter or Instagram like that, the no number rule goes across all social media. So if you've got numbers in your address, and I'm at Networking Jean or Networking Jeannie for most things, but if you're at D O'Donnell 1235678, change it, personalize it, and make sure that it is personalized before you put it into LinkedIn, because it gets locked in for that particular aspect of it. You want to then have what's called a CTA, so a call to action. And that's connect with me or reach out to me. If you leave it bland and don't tell people what to do, they won't do anything. So if you want them to connect with you, if you want them to reach out, if you want them start a relationship, or if you want to be able to start a relationship, you have to make it as easy. And the rule is don't assume anything. So make it as easy as possible for people. Okay, so now we're on to layer 3. So here you are going to talk about your education. You're going to talk about your experience, and all of this goes in chronological order. And again, your experience, don't forget your key words. Keep dotting them out through your profile, because this is part of the search engine optimization opportunity of making sure that you are searchable and findable on Google if somebody was doing a search on you. If you're doing volunteering, put that in. If you've got accreditations and you're doing your CPD courses, for example, put it in. They have little, the icons for logos and stuff like that. They used to pick up on logos, and they're starting to change some of that. So see, can you get the logo, for example, if you've got something for Engineers Ireland, and put it in and say my accreditation and the courses I've done, CPD that I've achieved, and what have you. When you're on the Me profile and you're going through all of this as well, they have updated it now. So there's a whole section on the right-hand side that has lots of radio buttons. So you can also choose what you want to turn on your profile or what you want to turn off. So why I say that, for example, is that if you haven't done any volunteering, you might want to turn that off because you don't want to bring attention to it. But if you did something later this year, you might want to turn that back on, say, I volunteered at XYZ. So you can pick and choose to show and portray the information you want about you that is right at that moment in time. And the last part of this slide is recommendations, and it is give and ask. So you can go down to recommendations and ask your colleagues for recommendations, ask your customers for recommendations, ask your suppliers for recommendations. It's something suppliers are very, very often underestimated. But if you do sort of metric scores on what works, and we should always do a 360. So it's not just about how we treat our customers or our colleagues. We should always look to our suppliers as well, but ask for recommendations. And again, tell people what you want the recommendation for, okay? Because if you're changing your area or you want to get known for something, say, hey, I would love a recommendation on X topic because I want to build up the awareness that I have knowledge and expertise in this area. So you can be quite specific. It may be just, can you give me a recommendation based on a project I did or delivered, or can you might want to go to your line manager or the CEO and say, listen, would you mind giving me a recommendation on LinkedIn just about who you are, not about a particular project, but who you are as a person. But be ready to give them as well, because again, that is part of building those relationships. So giving, and all relationships are a two-way street. So ask for them and give yourself a little metric. You might want to ask for 3 a month, but put down a little metric that you're going to keep building it up, because it is such an asset. And in terms of promotions, in terms of employability, in terms of attractiveness in your profile, people are going to look at this to see, because you are social proofing yourself as well. And that's also part of future proofing yourself. So do ask for them and don't be afraid to ask for them. Okay, so there's a little bit on this slide. So I wanted to talk about content, and this is the 4th layer. It's putting in the content. So if you remember at the start of the slide deck, I said that LinkedIn has approximately 650 million users and counting and growing every single day. But here is to me, it's a awesome in a bad way statistic, because only 1%, i.e. 6.5 million people post once a week. Not a lot. That creates, however, a compound factor, and that spirals to 9 billion interactions. But if you subtract the 6.5 million people who are active once a week on LinkedIn from the 650 million, what are those people doing? And the answer is they're consuming information, they're digesting information, and they're watching. So what I want to encourage you to do is I want you to build up your profile. And when you've built up your profile, that's part 1. Part 2 really is look at the content. And so the content should be informative and educational. So ask yourself, if you're putting something out, does this add value? So it's a really good thing to have in the back of your head. Is it adding value? Who am I informing? Who am I educating? And start putting it out there. And that'll help give you confidence also in how you write things and how you put yourself out there. So You can schedule too much. I would be on LinkedIn every single day doing different things. I don't expect somebody who is starting to do that, but I interact with it an awful lot. If you're starting, try and diarize what you're doing. Okay, so put it in that you're going to do something on LinkedIn. It might be first thing in the morning on a Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And what you could do is on a Monday, do a post, and it might be a post about something you've done, something that you're working on. You might be speaking at something, you might be part of a team or collaborating on a project. Tell people something that you're doing. But if you're not comfortable yet generating your own content, what you can also do is take third-party content. So you might have read an article from Forbes or the Irish Times or Irish Independent or the New York Times or Harvard or something like that, and go, hey, this is a really, or Engineers Ireland, the Journal, you know, anything in the area. But it doesn't have to be specifically to your area. So do think outside the box there as well. But the point is, get content and put the link in and say, hey, thought this was a really interesting article. This part really interested me. What do you think? When you're sharing or you're sharing on somebody else's post, you always have to qualify why people should go and spend their time reading that article. Don't just post the article and think, I've done my post, that's it. No, you have to tell people what you expect them to do. You have to tell them that this is a good article to read. It's a good use of your time to go in and read it, and here's what you're going to get out of it. Or you can whet their appetite if there was 5 points on driving sales, for example. You say, I really like point 3. What do you think? So what you're trying to do is get people to take the time to go into that article, but you can post things that you think would be of use to your community or that you're finding useful, and you can comment on them. So that's a way of you starting to post stuff, and it can be a quicker way of building up your posting and your content and get until you have your own content to start posting. Don't forget to tag people. I was on something yesterday and people were sort of saying, what's tagging? Tagging is when you put, for example, at Jean Evans. When LinkedIn reads it, it's going to turn blue, and that means I'm notified that you've tagged me in a post. So if you want other people to be aware, it might be your team members or your boss or your company, whatever, put at company name or at people and use your hashtags, use the tagging and connect people, because they'll very often comment on it as well, and that just helps the viral aspect of it. Use video. Video is prolific. It has been for the last year, and it's only going to grow. A lot of us aren't very comfortable with the idea of video, but what you can do is do a little video on your phone, and you can upload it directly to LinkedIn as well. So it might be, you know, when we do get back face to face, for example, that you're at an event and you do a tiny little video, a little snapshot, or it might be a little box pop on what you're getting out and what you're learning, and you just do a little post going, hey, I'm at this conference and here's a few of the things I'm learning, really good, really informative. You're telling people where you're at, you're showing that you're doing your learning, your CPD, that you're networking, that you're active. So you can look at the video content like that, or you could put out tips. You could put out useful information. You could do a commentary on a white paper that you've read recently. In terms of content, the world is your oyster. It's just looking at what you want and how you want to position yourself. Is it going to be very technical, useful, informative, educational? So just looking at it. But remember, the key word is value. So an article is the longer post. So I'm going to show a couple of graphics in the next slide on this, but the article is the longer post where you're also going to have to do a header for it. You're going to put in a full article and space it out. So it's not just a couple of hundred characters. You can do a full article, and when you publish it, you have your own URL for it, and I'm going to talk to you about that as well, which is why I've put it there. But you have your own URL for it, and if you do have a Twitter account, then you can also post on Facebook. You can also choose to post it onto Twitter and to Facebook as well, so it helps your other social media channels as well if you so wish to, or you're on those channels. If you're putting a URL, so a link, a website link, whatever, a good idea at the moment, and when I say this, it's correct at the time of print, because the way the algorithms are constantly changing. But the way LinkedIn works is that when you put content out there, it's showing it to a very small audience. And the more commentary it sees, it starts widening it out a little bit. And then it says, oh, that seems to be an interesting article. LinkedIn will open it to the next thing. So think about it as layers of an onion. At the start, it's only going to a very, very small select few of people. It'll only take a percentage, and then it'll grow that percentage as it sees the interaction. So a good way to start the interaction is that if you've got a URL to a course or an article, put it in the comments. And the way that looks is that you would write your post and say, this is a really, really interesting article. The link to the article is in the comments. So you're making people scroll down and go into the comments, and that starts getting that viral traction going. So it makes that snowball start rolling. When people comment on your posts, make sure you respond back, because that also helps widen up, because LinkedIn says, oh, this must be a really interesting post, and it starts widening it out to a wider audience. And that's what you want, because that's what you're starting to get yourself out there. And also, I mentioned about introverts at the start. If you're an introvert, this is a really, really clever way of getting yourself out there, because introverts like to network on a one-to-one basis. They're much more comfortable in either very small groups or in a one-to-one basis where they can have deeper conversations, and they're not big into the schmoozing side of things. And LinkedIn is a really good way of doing this online in a safe space at your computer. And it really does boost your confidence when you see and start building up that content, building up that traction, and you see people responding and interacting with you. It really will give you a boost. So do make this sort of one of your key goals for this year, to really take LinkedIn on and make it win for you. There's the happy birthday, happy anniversary things. The reason I will always go through when it says 10 people have birthdays today, I always go through it, because I look at people. If I don't know the people, I will do nothing, because that is sort of slightly creepy stalking. But if I do know the people and I haven't connected with them in a while, I'll take the opportunity going, hey, hope you're well. And it's keeping me top of mind. And this is all what networking is about, keeping yourself top of mind. It's about building those relationships. So you have to take those little, again, micro networking opportunities to build relationships and keep yourself connected and keep yourself top of mind, because within anything in sales or marketing, you're only as good as the last piece of content you put out or the last sale that you made. So you have to keep working at it, and it's never going to stop. But doing happy birthday, there's all of the automated messages. I would say don't use the automated messages. I would say take 5 extra seconds and personalize it, and just link in with the person and keep yourself top of mind. It is super, super simple, but very, very effective. A key thing with the content then as well is be consistent. Be consistent. If you think you can only post once a week, work on once a week, get comfortable with that, get it into your routine, and build on that. As I suggest, I'm saying at the start, I would definitely recommend going Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and you'll be able to build up on that, because you don't have to do massive posts or videos and stuff like that all of the time. Another thing to add on about the video as well is try and get it captioned. There are lots of free tools out there that can write the captions for the videos, but most people, when they're scrolling, read and don't have the sound on, because they might be out on a bus or just out and about and stuff like that. So just make sure you do put captions in, and as I said, there's easy software to help with that. Another way of making sure that you are consistent is looking at your time management. So a lot of people say this, oh my Lord, this is going to take so much time. It's not. What I would say is that if you can put 10 minutes at the start of your day for the next week or whatever, you would have your profile done and really bolstered up. So it's not going to take that long. What it does take is you being in the right frame of mind, the right mindset to make it happen. After that, the management of it is about getting into the habit of, first thing in the morning, I go in and I have a look at LinkedIn, who's been messaging, who's connected with me, whatever, who I want to connect with and do a one-to-one with in the coming weeks, what have you. Who I want to organize, starting a podcast or reaching out to people saying, hey, I'd like to interview and what have you. So I use that at the first thing in the morning, as it's sort of my habit, and I've made it part of my routine because I get so much value out of it. But you can batch your work as well. So you could sort of say, right, on a Monday morning from 9 to 10, while I'm having my coffee, I'm going to write a couple of articles, I'm going to post them, I'm going to schedule them. And we're going to talk about schedulers in a second, but you can batch your work so that you have it all done for the whole week and you're not having to keep going back into it. So it really is horses for courses as to what you prefer. So to give you an idea as to what I was talking about there, so the comment, there's 234, 100 comments. So that's a post I put up on my profile there a few days ago, and it's up as of recently, it was up at 7,634 views, and you can see 100 comments there. And this is where this is what I mean by it started to grow organically, because people were commenting, and I took the time to comment back to everybody and thank them for taking the time to comment, because that started growing the profile for what I was doing in terms of presidency of the network, and helped grows the brand of the network in general, because it's a national network, as an example. And this is a new thing. The one on the right, for example, that's a new thing on LinkedIn. This only came out yesterday, actually, as it happens. So I wouldn't have been able to quantify that. But apparently in the last year, I made 450 new connections. And I can safely say that probably 430 of them I have met online or in person, because I do an awful lot of networking. Obviously, I've had over 2,000 profile views and been engaged with my network nearly 4,500 times. But I couldn't have told you that, because I only spent a few minutes in the day doing that, but they're measuring the metrics for me. So it gives you a good benchmark as to where you're at. The next little screen grab that I've taken there is the post versus the article. So the post, what I was talking about there, is the short post. So that can be uploading a photo, a video, just a short post and updating people what you are doing, or the article that you've read that you want to share. But the article, that's where you write that's what we call the long tail content. That's where you would write a longer article. And so I would be oscillating and working between both of those to make sure you're maximizing. Now, a lot of people don't write articles. They tend to just work on the posts. And just to caution as well, when you write articles, the posts are transitory and they come and go, and people, when they're online, they will see them. But the article is there in your archive, so people can dip into them at any time when they're looking at articles that you've published. So if you want your content to really remain within your profile, within your archive, then look at doing long tail content in articles, because it will stay there and it'll be part of your general profile, not just fleeting content that you're putting out there to say hi to the world. So look at it strategically as to the value of what you're putting out there as well, because that will be important for your future. Okay, so in terms of building your network, this is a question that I hear quite often. How do you filter building the network and who to connect with? So do you connect with everybody and anybody? And the answer is no. You have to be careful. You have to be strategic. You have to think and have a plan as to why you're connecting with people. So I said I worked with 22 years in tourism. I can tell you that I still get a lot of requests from people in the conventions industry, from convention centers, from convention bureaus. And while there may be some strategic opportunity in the future, there isn't today. So I'm not connecting with them because they're not really aware of what I'm doing right now. So you need to look at why you want to connect. So 2 questions I put there that will help you, and you need to personalize these to yourself, but examples might be, is this person someone I can collaborate, network, or connect with and build a relationship professionally? And are they a good connection? And can I build a relationship so they become a client one day? So there are examples of questions you can ask in terms of creating a filter for why you connect with people. Now, who and how to invite. So this is something. So I put my LinkedIn profile. I told you it's at linkedin.com/in/networking Jean. So a lot of people will go connect and press send. This is one of the cardinal sins for me is don't do it. You have got to personalize the invites that you are sending to people. So when you're on your PC and you open LinkedIn, it automatically prompts you to put in a message. Always, 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 always put in a message. Put in the person's name, tell them why you're connecting. It might be that you met them at an event, online or offline. It might be that they're a colleague and they're going to know you're a colleague, but you mightn't always be colleagues. So what you want to do is make sure that you are very, very specific about what you're putting in there and why, and the call to action. What is the call to action? Love to connect. I'd love to meet up with you. I'd love to have a conversation with you. Use the person's name. And one of the things that I say in networking as well is it's really, really your name, my name, anybody's name. It's the most important word in anybody's language, because it's about you and your identity. It is the most important name. So if you are not sure of somebody's name, check it out. When you're connecting and sending an email to somebody, if you're not sure how to spell their name, go onto their LinkedIn profile. If they've sent a request and it's Claire with an I, don't write Claire without an I, because that's a disservice and disingenuous. So look out and make sure you know and are doing this correctly. Use their name, tell them why you're connecting, and what is the call to action? What do you want to make happen? Don't just write a statement, because nothing will happen. Just as a general piece of information, as I said in the previous slide, know why you are connecting with people. So LinkedIn has a 30K organic limit. So, but the messages stay as an aid memoir. And why this is really important is you may fall out of contact with somebody and in 5 years be looking at their profile and say, I can't remember why I contacted or why I was connected with that person. In the messages, your aid memoir of the personal invite you put is there, and it's going to give you that prompt. You can also do this on the phone. It's harder, but what you need to do is go on the person's profile. There's the 3 dots, and when you press the 3 dots, it'll give you a drop-down box, and one of them is personalized invite. So you can also personalize on your phone. So I would also say always have the app on your phone. It's really, really nifty and easy to use. Connect with your colleagues if you haven't already done so, because that's part of building up your network. They won't always be your colleagues. They may be for 5 years, but people change. There's always lots of career changes. So make sure you are doing these things. That may seem obvious, but if you haven't done them, you need to do them. If you're meeting people in networking events, make sure you're connecting with them afterwards. Again, tell them where you met them, why you're connecting, what the value is. So I'm conscious of time, so I'm going to really do a speed run through this. So these are some free resources. So there's Canva, which is great for doing graphics. You can also get photos on it. Pixabay and Unsplash are for photos, and I just have some graphics here of these things to show you as well. So there's Pixabay, Unsplash, which are great for getting images if you want an image to support a post that you're putting out. Canva, you can get photos, you can put graphics. So for example, for the header for your blogs, for your articles, for the header for your actual profile, you can look at the measurement. If you click in, LinkedIn will give you the pixel size, so you can edit the pixel size when you go into Canva. This is this view personality. This is a website called crystalknows.com. And if you go into it and you press the Chrome, download the Chrome extension to it, this little icon here of view personality will appear on your LinkedIn profile. And if you Google somebody and if you want to send a proposal, or you're doing an interview, or you're going to interview somebody, and you press view personality, based on what you've put in on LinkedIn, it's going to give you a whole disc profile for how you should interact with that person on the phone, on email, on LinkedIn, at a meeting. It's going to give you a whole list of things and how you interact with that person. So it's a really, really nifty tool, all free, and really, really good way of learning how to interact. So if you're an extrovert, how you interact with an introvert, how you interact with an extrovert, how to manage. If somebody is very, very blue, they're very, very technical, they want things to be very detail orientated, very precise. If somebody's big picture, they don't want all of that detail. So it allows you to tone and hone in your narrative and what you're talking about with these people. So the scheduling is Buffer and Hootsuite. So you can set up accounts and you can connect in all your other social media accounts. And that's what I mean about the scheduling, and you can batch schedule in advance, so does not take up all of your time. Linktree, again, is another resource that is fantastic. So I just took a screen grab of my one, and all I do there is every time I have a new blog or I do something on one of my social media profiles, I put in the link, I put in a title, and it automatically updates it. And you see the green little screen grab of the phone there. That's what it looks like on the phone. But it also means that I just have to send one link, and that's the link tree. I send one link, and if people go into it, they can get access to all of the social media profiles, all the individual blogs. So I don't have to be sending lots of different URLs. It's just a way of short-circuiting that. And Evernote is one thing that I think is absolutely fantastic, because it saves literally every couple of seconds. So when I'm writing or I'm trying to craft something, or a blog or an article, I use Evernote. And I also have the app on my phone, because it is just great when if you're out for a walk or you listen to a podcast and you get an idea or flash of inspiration, you can just put it in and it all syncs. The Linktree, what I'm saying there is use it everywhere. So once you've got that URL, use it on Twitter, use it on Instagram, wherever you are, use it in your auto signatures, because it means you're giving people access to all of your information. So literally, look at all of the profiles where you put information. If you've got, if you're on Slack, if you've got intercompany, in sort of intranets with, I couldn't think of the word, intranet in your own company, use it there because it's a short circuit way for people to get access to your information. Okay, default diary. Spend 10 minutes every morning building your network, spend time connecting with your colleagues and comment on posts. And what I say there about no thumbs is, if you just like a post and just don't put a comment in, it tells me that your thumb works. And within LinkedIn today, that has absolutely no value. Okay, you're not building any relationship there because you haven't actually taken the time to say you care. It just says that your thumb works. And we know our thumbs work. So what I want to encourage you to do is actually take the time to comment, even if it's a small one, just comment. It just shows that you're building that relationship and you're trying. But also, when you start putting all of your content out there, you're going to want people to comment. So make sure you're doing what you want people to do back to you. And that's, again, building those relationships. What I would suggest is on a quarterly basis, put in a diary reference and network it to your diary just on a quarterly basis to do a full audit of your profile, because so much happens. Everything's happening so quickly. You're doing lots of courses. It just gives you that little prompt to make sure your profile is up to date with the course or accreditation or something you've been doing that you've forgotten to put into your profile, or you might have added a new social media profile. You might decide in March, I'm going to set up Instagram, right? Get that updated on your profile then as well. What happens if you don't, your profile becomes like wallpaper. You don't see it anymore. You don't see what content is there. So you really have to do it with intention. So put it in your diary to remind yourself to do the update, because otherwise you will forget. Okay, just finishing up then as well. So there's another, in the work thing that I've circled there. If you click into that, there's a thing called groups. You can join groups, and that's a good way of getting your profile out there. It's a good way of connecting with different people from different countries, different communities. You can also create your own group, which I circled there as well. So if you want to do something in the company, or you wanted to start a new theme and trend, you can create your own group and start inviting people in there. And that's that sense of subject matter expert. It's that sense of leadership and authentic leadership, and putting yourself out there as well. But seek to serve. Remember, value is very, very key. You can also follow, sorry, I beg your pardon. You can also follow hashtags, and you can follow the hashtags as well, which is a great way of following content that might be useful for you. And when you've written the articles, I mentioned before that there are URLs for the article. You can take that article, copy it onto your clipboard and post it in groups. Say, hey, I just wrote this new article and here's why I think it's really interesting for you to read and what you're going to get out of it. And again, it's a way of you getting your profile, your personal brand and your knowledge out there to a wider audience as well. So there's so many different aspects to it. Don't try and do it all at once. Try and build up. The first thing is build up your profile. That is key. Second thing is work on your content. Third is work out how you disseminate your content and how you get it out there. So to finish up then, do not pitch or sell. LinkedIn is not about selling. It is not about connecting with somebody and then immediately going, I have something to sell you, or I want to talk to you about this. That's not what it's about. It's about building relationships, 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 relationships. Do not connect and sell. Do not post too often. If you're doing once a day, that's absolutely fine. If you can manage that on your schedule. Do not hide behind the logo or have an unprofessional picture. Don't forget to proof. And I always, when we're on a screen as well, our eyes only see what they want to see. So it's a good idea to print off what you've written and read it from paper, because you will not catch any errors if it's only on screen. I'm a bit of a grammar nerd and a demon with the red pen. And so it's something that gets me. And also, I know if I've done something on screen and I've only proofed it on screen, I will go back to it maybe a month later and go, oh, my Lord, there's an error and I have to update it. Don't use automated services for connecting with people. There's lots of different profiles and different pieces of software. It is about connecting human to human. So make sure that you don't forget that. And key takeaways then, update it in stages, do review it periodically, do start generating content, because this is about getting your voice out to the universe and being confident in that. And this is one thing that got me with networking as well, is that when I was out on my own and going out, I didn't have a company behind me. And what I realized was, when you've got a company behind you, you've got the jargon, you've got the marketing speak, you've got the strategy, and it is a huge part of your conversation, how you put yourself out there. But when you don't have that behind you, who are you? What does your voice sound like? And I mean metaphorically. What do you stand for? And by building up your content and your post and stuff like that, it makes you work out, what is my voice? What matters to me? And that will yield traction and will get you noticed. So build your network, share useful articles, do keep it human, relevant, and social. So I do hope that is helpful. And I'm just going to dive into some of the chat there.